Hello, I would like to invite Mr. Kanak Dixit on the stage. He is the founder of Himal, Southasian. He's from Nepal. Mr. Shahidul Alam, a very famous journalist, photojournalist from Bangladesh. Sir, कैसे हैं आप? Shahidul Alam. Chung. She is from the United Nations Office of Human Rights in Geneva. So as you know, the subject of this session is the erosion of free speech on the pretext of national security, because you know that in many South Asian countries and in many other countries, the states, the governments are using the word or the pretext of national security to suppress the voices of dissent. So it's a growing trend. That's why we are going to discuss this subject. And first of all, I would like Chung to throw some light on this subject, because she is the head of the South Asian team of the United Nations Human Rights Office in Switzerland. And I remember that she also spoke in Asma Jahangir conference in 2024. So, Christine, please tell us your views about this trend of imposing restrictions on media in the name of national security in the light of international law.
Thank you. I just want to start by saying thank you to the organizers for inviting me to join this very illustrious panel. And this conference is one of my favorite events in Pakistan. So I start by talking about the fundamental human rights issues here. So we are really talking about the right to freedom of expression. And the freedom of expression is an enabling right, because without the right to freedom of expression, people cannot access other human rights. It is essential for a free and democratic society, and the right to freedom of expression is recognized not only in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but also international human rights law. We're talking about the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and other human rights treaties and other regional human rights treaties. Article 19 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights requires that states guarantee everyone the right to freedom of expression. This includes the freedom to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas of all kinds, regardless of frontiers, either orally, in writing or in print, or in the form of art, or through any other media of his or her choice. As such, the freedom of expression encompasses, on the one hand, the right of the public to receive a wide variety of information provided by the media, and on the other hand, the right of the journalists to seek and convey information, as well as to access information on public affairs. The right to, the restrictions, the right to freedom of expression is not absolute, but any restriction to the freedom of expression, it has to be provided by law. It has to pursue a legitimate aim, such as the protection of the rights or reputations of others, the protection of national security, public order, or public health or morals, and it must be necessary and proportionate. Now, when we talk about also counterterrorism, national security, these are also important parts of the legal and regulatory framework of the state. And it is the duty of the state. We have to look at the role of the state. And it's as the primary duty bearer for human rights, the government also has to protect all individuals within their jurisdiction from acts of terrorism, and they have to safeguard national security. But they also, at the same time, have to abide by human rights law and the obligation to protect the right to freedom of expression, and this includes media freedom. Now, counterterrorism laws, they can be used to violate media freedoms and threaten the safety of journalists. Journalists are often subject to detention, prosecution, and these measures can also result in internet shutdowns. And what's important to keep in mind is that counterterrorism offenses, when they're vague, when they're broadly drafted, this can really bring legitimate reporting activities into suspicion. And they can also criminalize journalism and legitimate expression. And it's the global context in which these measures, the counterterrorism measures, when they're not properly limited, has contributed to the decline in media freedom. UNESCO has said that 85% of the global population has already been affected by these restrictions. I can stop there and go into more detail, I think, after the others have had an opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Now, I would like to invite Mr. Shahidul Alam. He is a photojournalist, an author, and a very famous public speaker in Bangladesh. And I remember that he faced many problems because he always speak truth. And maybe it was 2019 when he organized a talk of Arundhati Rai in Bangladesh, and he was forced to cancel it. Shahidul Alam Sahab, please tell us. I would like to ask my question by referring the latest World Press Freedom Index. Last year in 2024, Bangladesh was on the number 165 out of 180 countries. So the ranking of the Bangladesh in World Press Freedom Index was very low. But in 2025, now we are entered in 2026, but in 2024 it was 165, and in 2025 it improved to 149. There is a massive improvement in the Press Freedom Index about Bangladesh. So what was the difference, what happened in 1 year that Bangladesh improved so much from 165 to 149? Was the restrictions on the Bangladeshi media and political parties imposed in the name of national security?
Thank you for that. Firstly, I want to say that they tried to cancel our talk with Arundhati. We didn't succumb.
Yeah.
We found another place and we did it anyway. And that's what we usually do. Thank you for that reference to the Freedom of Expression Index. Of course, Bangladesh did rise, but it's still pretty low down.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to wave a flag about it, though I do think we need to be congratulated for the shift. One big difference, of course, is that in 2025, we had what is said to be a neutral interim government. So the government was not designed, it was not a political government. It was a government that came in specifically with the idea of reforms. And one of the things that has been put in is a set of media reforms. Whether we will implement it or not, time will tell. But interestingly enough, there are two things I want to bring up on that issue. One is that Is that? Okay. When we have a shift, we also, as journalists, need to adapt to it. And I think one of the problems we have, one of the reasons we've not done more, is because journalists have not become used to the fact that there's not as much restriction on freedom of expression. And journalists themselves need to actually get used to a different climate. While the government has very clearly said, you're open to criticize us, you're open to ask questions, there will not be a banning or repressive measures taken, the journalists themselves have not fully believed it and have not, in my opinion, done enough to take advantage of this situation and come up with the critical questions, come up with the role that they need to have in order to do that. But I would like to move from this end of the spectrum to another part of the spectrum. I mean, I look at the panel, the sponsors to this, and I hope I don't get people into trouble here. There are very impressive organizations, Western organizations. Certainly Bangladesh is low down, as is Pakistan and some of our other countries. Right up there are the Scandinavian countries, very high on the Freedom of Expression Index. My question is, what are you doing with your freedoms? And what is the point of having that freedom if you're not prepared to exercise it? Because if you look at the world today, in terms of what is happening, in terms of the blatant abuse of power that is taking place, I don't think journalists who have that freedom have actually exercised it. And I find that problematic because, you know, the West's selective invocation of freedom of expression as a weapon, not a principle, the silencing of Julian Assange, Palestinian voices, funding press freedom initiatives abroad while prosecuting whistleblowers at home is problematic. So I would like to look at those aspects, but I want to, while I have the mic, talk of something else which I think is relevant, and that is the freedom of expression includes the right to offend. And this is something I don't think we take sufficient cognizance of. It's a very selective right. You cannot offend powerful people or majority religions, but the fact that these same people are constantly trampling over the less powerful or minority religions is never an issue. So while it sounds good in principle, what happens in practice I think is important. And I think in terms of what we need to do it even if it goes against our personal interest. Will Pakistani lawyers campaign for Pakistan to pay reparations to Bangladesh? I would love to see it happen, but I won't be holding my breath. Real commitment to free expression means defending it consistently, not instrumentally, even when the truth indicts us.
Thank you, Mr. Shahidul Alam. And I hope you all know Mr. Kanak Dixit. He's from Nepal, a very famous journalist and writer. And there is one common thing these days in Pakistan and Nepal. It's not positive, it's negative. Pakistan dropped 6 points in World Press Freedom Index in just 1 year. From 152, it dropped to 158. And Nepal was on 74 on World Press Freedom Index. It dropped at 90. Massive decline. So I would like to ask Kanak Dixit Saab that what is the reason behind this decline of Nepal on World Press Freedom Index, and is there a better national security after this decline in Nepal?
Well, the Press Freedom Index is behind the times, frankly. Whoever does their mathematics has not looked at Nepal over months.
Okay.
It is a matter that has to be seen because our politics are in, rise and dive, rise and dive. And right now, in one sense, in terms of press freedom, we are on a rise. I would speak to all of South Asia from my Kathmandu perspective. And the best way to check freedom, press freedom or freedom of speech index is which society uses Signal, the platform, to communicate. As you know, even Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein was telling somebody in his emails, come to Signal. So, Pakistan, they use Signal. Whoever is significant and wants to protect his or her communication. Indian activists and politicians got into Signal about 8 or 9 years ago. Bangladesh, if Shahidul will correct me, but I would think it is about 5 or 6 years ago, people started going to Signal. Nepal, as yet, we have not had to go into Signal. I can still communicate on direct text, SMS, and not fear that somebody will come knocking, although who knows what happens, kal kya hoga, kya baat. I would, that's my preface remark, I would say that erosion of free speech on the pretext of national security does not only impact press. We tend to think it impacts the media, but as you can see from Pakistan, from India, from Nepal, it's also impacting the judiciary on one extreme. The judiciary is pulling back from the kind of decisions it might have otherwise given because of this incredible pressures that they feel. But not just the judiciary, not just the press, even the average opinion maker who would put something on his or her Twitter feed or his Facebook account pulls back from doing it. That is because thinking and free thinking all over, not just free speech, free thinking is impacted. So, national security is propagated by and large by the majoritarian state. And as Shahidul said before me, it is the minorities and defense of the minorities by even the majority communities that is impacted. When the majoritarian state starts using the danda of national security to come down hard on the media and indirectly on even the justices of the court and the magistrates as well as opinion makers. Now, the national security is now made, the idea of national security is now made even more dangerous in these times of faith-based national security. As long as it is quote-unquote secular nationalism, you go towards ultra-nationalism, but even ultra-nationalism will not go beyond a point. But when you have it linked to religion, then things become really dangerous, and that is when you get the self-censorship. We are way past the time when you expect and you fight the state for carrying out censorship. We are now in the era of self-censorship across South Asia. And this is where not only do minorities get impacted, but so do majority communities because the society's democratic efficiency is weakened. So I would just end by saying this. I have more to say about South Asia as a whole, comparing India and Pakistan and Bangladesh and Nepal as I know it. However, the social media, I think the previous session also dealt with social media. So not only do you have faith-based or religion-based national security ideas propagated to silence opinion makers, but you also now, we are now in the era of social media algorithms that promote rancor, looking deep into the evolution of modern day humans, including modern day, the brain development of modern day humans. The Nawabs of social media in Silicon Valley have understood that you propagate negativism to fill your pockets with billions of dollars. And we are all in that funda. We are all stuck in there. And so not only, I'll end by saying, not only is ultranationalism now laced with religion and faith, call it Islamic extremism or call it Hindutva, two sides of the border. That is one danger that is impacting free speech. more than we ever had to before. And secondly, it is social media. The trolls are after you. So even an average opinion maker will follow social media but not make opinions. So people who are up front, faces in the public, I'm sure this is happening to Hamid Mir as well. I know it has happened to you. You get trolled out of shape. And what does that do to people with lesser amounts of courage? You go quiet. And that quietude is covering the face of South Asia as we speak.
Mr. Kanak Dixit very beautifully summed up the whole issue in 3 words. And he said, national security ka danda. So this danda is very important, and I hope, Christine, you understood the national security ka danda means the stick of national security. The stick is very big, you see, and very dangerous. So now I would like to ask you, how has the concept of national security been used to justify restrictions on the freedom of speech, and where should the line be drawn?
Thank you for that question, a very challenging question. Look, I think the problem is that national security, that states use national security to enact broad, vague legal definitions of terrorism, of extremism, and these are used to restrict civic space and limit human rights. Many states, they persist with these overbroad definitions of terrorism, and what this does is it gives them excessive discretion, not only to misuse the laws against people who are saying things that they don't like, but these laws create uncertainty, and this uncertainty itself creates a chilling effect on freedom of expression and civic participation. And this is all part of a package, right? So these definitions, this legal framework, they also include travel bans, asset freezes, and labeling individuals as terrorists brings them under these restrictions. There's a very low threshold of proof. There's usually a lack of due process and judicial safeguards. I think it's already been mentioned on this panel, the impact in the courts and irregularities go with these situations. And the problems that exist are exacerbated. So we still have excessive pretrial detention. We have denial of access to legal counsel, and essentially reprisals against lawyers for doing their jobs, for defending activists and political opponents. And I guess the other part of the context in which all this is happening, we also have the weaponization of new technologies. There was some reference to this, I think, in the previous panel. But the ability of states to harass and to limit civil society, to limit journalists, the methods have gotten cheaper, easier. Now you can use, personal data collection against journalists, against human rights defenders, against civil society. And also just to mention before I finish that there's really, there's also additional gender-based dimensions to all of this. So that, again, the targeting can have particular impact on women. The use of doxing, the use of blackmail, so I mean, and then there's a whole other element, of course, of within this national security framework of additional cybercrime laws, which you see across the region, but not just across the region, actually globally. I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. I can see many faces in this audience, many faces who have been declared as a threat to national security in the past, not once, but many times. I see many faces. I will not name. And some people were arrested also in the name of national security. Am I right? You were also. So, Mr. Shahidul Alam, now I would like to ask a question about your personal experience. Have you been declared a threat to national security in the past, and how did you defend yourself? Because we want to learn something from you. How you and me can defend myself in the experience of Mr. Shahidul Alam.
In the last session, there was a reference to the DSA, the Digital Security Act.
Yeah.
That is a very nasty word in Bangladesh. I was actually picked up, tortured, spent time in jail in 2018 because I was reporting. That's my job. But of course, it was reporting that was not considered favorable to the government. So that was their response. The interesting thing is, at that time, I was picked up. I wouldn't say arrested, because arrest has a procedure. I was picked up under what is called the ICT Act, Information and Communication Technology Act. We protested. It was a draconian law. We protested. They replaced it with DSA, the Digital Security Act, which was much worse. We protested against that. They replaced it with CSA, Cyber Security Act, which was even worse. Then we had the interim government, and we thought, okay, these are our friends, human rights workers, civil society people. They will actually come up with something which will be better. They brought out the Cyber Protection Ordinance, the CPO, and in fact, that wasn't very different from the previous three ones. And largely, we discovered because it had been drafted by the same bureaucrats who drafted the previous ones. Some low-level clerk somewhere had done it and did it to a format. We were fortunately able to talk to the ministry. Civil society played a role, and we were able to bring about changes. And now we have the makings of a somewhat more sensible set of laws. But whether that's enough is a matter of debate. This is what governments do. But I think what we need to look at is our own role within this space, because at the end of the day, I mean, I think if we are referring to Asma, for instance, Asma's refusal to accept double standards from any quarter was what made her special. She was extraordinary, but she shouldn't have had to be. I think it is we as journalists doing our normal job that needs to be celebrated, and we need to be doing that. We've not learned from each other's experiences, which is unfortunate, but I think we need to look not only at what governments do to try and stop us, but what we can do to resist. They have resources, we have resolve. They have weapons, we have witnesses. They have propaganda, we have proof. And in the long accounting of history, I think proof prevails. And I think we need to remember that we've already won the moment we refuse to lie. And that really is a very powerful thing to remind ourselves with. I would, we were talking of words, I would actually use 3 words to express how we combat it. Document, resist, repeat. And that has to be what we do consistently. And we win not by waiting for the powerful to validate our struggle, but by building something that they cannot destroy. And that must be our challenge.
Very nice. Mr. Dixit, what do you see the future of democracy in South Asia, and especially the future of free speech in the pretext of national security? Do you think that national security is becoming a biggest threat for the freedom of speech in South Asia?
In those countries where national security is attached to majoritarian religion, faith, democracy is in the gravest danger. And within that come Pakistan and India as the two largest countries of South Asia fall within this bracket. And that is why, and then these two large countries, highly countries that are able to influence neighbors near and far, they get to influence the rest of South Asia. So I would start by saying that what I mentioned in my earlier point, Hamid, that free speech is impacted by national security. National security is impacted when religion is laced into the fibers of the national security state, in which case it becomes very hard to resist, because the extremists will come after you with a machete or with a gun. Sometimes even your guards will turn on you. That is how dangerous it becomes once religion slips into it. And sadly, the two largest countries of South Asia, both, it started by Ziaul Haq regime, of course, but now India has learned a lot of what Pakistan has gone through before this, and the rest of South Asia is also, as a result, impacted. I would say that in the case of Bangladesh, Bangladesh is going into elections in a couple of, next week. And I personally see in the arena of freedom of expression linked to the national security state, Bangladesh is teetering, and we all wish Bangladesh will be exemplary for the rest of South Asia by rescuing itself from the folds of extremism that impacts the national security state. Sri Lanka remains within the constitution, even though they also had a great movement 3 years ago, and it was a youth-led movement, but it remained within the constitution. Nepal is also in a difficult situation, because this whole era of social media impacted politics has meant that we have our elections on March the 5th. And for the first time, issues are not being discussed. It is personalities. It's almost like we are a parliamentary democracy, but it's almost like a presidential system election that is happening in Nepal as we speak. And so we don't know where we'll end up. And sadly, the tentacles of political Hindutva is also penetrating Nepal. So it is not as bad as in parts of India, but Hindutva is also penetrating Nepal. So for the rest of us to be able to see that and to challenge it amidst the trolling, amidst the backlash in social media, when so many opinion makers go silent. I can tell you, people who used to propose themselves as the social scientists, the opinion makers of the last 2-3 decades, in the last 5 years have gone silent. Because who needs to, the feeling is, who needs this? Who needs these attacks on your person through social media, which is then read by the rest of society? So I would really suggest that social media, the use of social media, the rampant anarchy in social media is actually having an impact in our democracy, and using often the via media of national security. I'll end by suggesting to you, and I think this is probably true in Pakistan as it is in Nepal and elsewhere in South Asia, that the legacy media is now being made to chase after news created or trends created by social media. So the weakening of social media for various reasons, because of technology, but also because of the state and because of faith-based populism is impacting, is being used by social media, and the opinion makers that used to be in legacy media have mostly gone silent. Particularly, I should add, we may read Dawn, we may read the news, but and across the Wagah-Atari border, they may read English papers. In Nepal, you may read the Kathmandu Post, but politics is made in the vernacular, and the vernacular is impacted so much that it impacts politics as a whole. So when the outsider looks at a society, including Pakistan, they may see a very liberal society, but the churning underneath can be much more dangerous than what you read in an English language paper.
So we have very short time left for some questions. So if you want to ask a question, please stand up, tell your name and question to whom, please.
My name is Chaudhry Nasser Mahmood, but by profession I am a lawyer. क्योंकि नेपाल से भी तशरीफ़ फरमाए, बांग्लादेश से भी, और वहाँ पर उर्दू समझी जाती है, क्योंकि ऑडियंस की अक्सरियत उर्दू समझते हैं. हामिद मीर साहब, इसमें आपने भी अपनी तरफ से इनपुट देना है. अभी तक आजकल साउथ एशिया में इंडियन जर्नैल नारवान की बुक जो है वो इस वक्त पूरे साउथ एशिया में इस वक्त ज़ेरे बहस है कि 2020 में जो चाइना ने इंडिया पर हमला करा था, तो जनरल नारवान की जो बुक है 4 स्टार्स ऑफ डेस्टिनी, वो मोदी गवर्नमेंट से पूछता है जी मैंने क्या करना है कि चाइना के 4 टैंक हम पर चढ़ाई कर रहे हैं. उसने उनके डिफेंस मिनिस्टर से पूछा, उसने कहा जवाब देता हूँ. उन्होंने दूसरे एडवाइज़र से पूछा, जवाब देते हैं. आखिर में उन्होंने मोदी साहब को रात को जगा कर कहा कि क्या करना है, तो वो कहते हैं जी जो जर्नैल ने करना है कर ले, लेकिन नेशनल सिक्योरिटी के नाम पर वो बुक अनपब्लिश्ड है. इस वक्त राहुल गांधी पार्लियामेंट में वो सवाल उठा रहे हैं कि ये बुक को पब्लिश होने दें, लेकिन मोदी गवर्नमेंट कह रही है कि ये सिक्योरिटी के नाम पर हम पब्लिश नहीं होने देंगे. अगर ये हामिद मीर साहब, अगर ये सूरत पाकिस्तान में होती तो पाकिस्तान वाले क्या करते?
पाकिस्तान में ये कई दफा हो चुका है.
कर लें,
ठीक है, पाकिस्तान में कई दफा हो चुका है that many books were banned in the name of national security. So anyone?
I can. I don't know if Shahidul can speak Hindi or Urdu or Hindustani. He may, because he's a smart man. But मेरा थोड़ा बहुत हिंदुस्तानी में पकड़ है, तब मैं आपको जवाब दे दूँ कि एक अफसोस की बात यह है कि ना यहाँ पोडियम में ना ऑडियंस में कोई इंडियन सिटीजन हो जिसने आपका प्रश्न, आपका क्वेश्चन को जवाब दे सके, क्योंकि हम लोग तो दूसरी मुल्क का है. तब भी ये आई कैन से इन जनरल that national security is the term national security is misused totally. That is the whole हमारा ये जो हम यहाँ जो बात कर रहे हैं उसका मकसद ही इतना ही है कि the term national security in Nepali it is राष्ट्रीय सुरक्षा, right? It is misused all the time, and I believe it is being misused in the context. नेपाल से हो, काठमांडू से, नया दिल्ली से नहीं हो, इससे ज़्यादा आगे मैंने कुछ कहना ठीक नहीं होगा.
Okay. So I am not part of the management of this conference, but as a journalist I know that the management of this conference tried their level best to invite some guests from India, and you are witness that many Indian journalists and human rights activists were invited in this conference in the past, but this time they were not permitted. So next question, if anyone want to ask, yes, please.
Thank you so much. This was a very enlightening session. I just want to ask all of you.
Please introduce yourself. I know you, but...
Sorry, my name is Shima Kirmani,
Yeah.
and I'm a human rights defender and an artist based in Karachi.
And a national security threat.
No. Have always been since the time I started dancing. My question is do you people think it is at all possible for us in South Asia to get together somehow to fight this wave that is flooding us of religious extremism? Is there any possibility, if anyone would like to suggest anything? Thank you.
Shahidul Alam Sahab.
Thank you for that. I wanted to come to that, so I'm very happy. मैं Urdu अच्छा बोल नहीं सकते मगर समझ लेते. And in fact, just a little anecdote, day before yesterday, I met my friend Iqbal Bhangar, who taught me Urdu in London when I was doing my PhD 48 years ago. So that's, at least it helps. No, absolutely. I think a real commitment to freedom of expression requires us to defend it consistently, not instrumentally, and we need to do it together. And there, I think we do have a collective position, because at the end of the day, we need to look to see what we can do collectively. And one of the things I'm very conscious of is that the repressors have actually learned from each other's playbook. You know, the Trumps and the Modis and the Netanyahus and possibly the military rulers here have actually looked to see what others have done, how they've done it well, and used it selectively and refined it. We have failed to do the reverse. And I think it is high time that we really need to learn from each other's resistance movements. That's very, very important. And we also need to move from individual heroism to institutional resilience. Because at the end of the day, we create these heroes and they're celebrated, but that does not translate into long-lasting resistance, and that we have to be able to do. But at the end of the day, I think we need to remember that victory is when we look at ourselves in the mirror and know that we did not collaborate with our own erasure. And that is something we need to do collectively. And certainly some of the things that we did earlier on, that I've been doing since I've been here, is looking at ways how we can collectively find ways to break this down. And at the end of the day, I have no faith in any government. And I have not come across a single government that does not espouse democracy and freedom in its rhetoric and actively oppose it in its practice. So that's the reality. And we, as individuals, need to build that fabric of resistance ourselves and collectively find ways. We are stronger than they are, I believe it.
Yes. You want? So, yes, you can suggest a resolution also.
Madam Kirmani, we have all, those of us who consider ourselves, each of us, Nepali, Bangladeshi, Pakistani, Sri Lankan, all of us also, those of us who think of ourselves also as South Asian, have been at it for a while. And you don't even have to use the term South Asia. You can just have a South Asian sensibility, which means to be open towards the other within your society and across the border. That is a tough one we've realized over the decades to fulfill, because again, the word national security, the term national security and that danda of national security makes the larger society unable to carry that momentum that few of us carry it in our hearts and our activities. So I give you one example, the documentary of your classical dance. We did everything we could through the festival that I happened to run to spread that documentary, and those things will create resonance in individuals all over. But it's very hard for those individuals, let's say in Calcutta, in Biratnagar in Nepal, or in Chittagong, who sees that documentary about a Hindustani classical dance exponent in Pakistan against all odds, presenting it and becoming a national security threat, right? That there will be resonance in individuals all over, but very difficult to bring them together. And that is the formula that we have as yet lacking.
One last question.
I'm Farooq Tariq. To save your skin from...
You are Farooq Tariq, a very famous national security threat. Yeah.
To save your skin from the danda of national security, many activists now believe in self-censorship.
Okay.
And they always criticize those who take the opportunity to raise journal issues in a very clear manner. They say you should be very articulate. that your...
Sir, we are short of time, please.
Yes, or last...
Squeeze your question.
Okay. It's just a little contribution, really not a question.
Contribution.
Yes. So many actors says you have to be very intelligent, that your tweet or your social media update should be understood by someone but should not be understood by everyone.
Okay.
So you have to be very clever to save your skin from the danda of this.
So we can
national
take another
security.
question. Can you pass the mic to the lady with the...
In the back.
Aapke piche.
Thank you. I'm Amna Masood Junjua from Defense of Human Rights. So I work on enforced disappearance. My question is with Shahidul and...
Shahidul Alam.
Yeah, Shahidul Alam and the guest from Nepal. That in Pakistan, enforced disappearances are committed because the people are national security risks. So can you also throw some light? Is it happening in your countries also for the same reason?
People are arrested not because they're national security threats, but because they're pro-people. That is the only reason people get picked up.
Yeah.
Let's be very clear about that. Yeah? Governments will find many ways to dress it up and cloak it in many different ways. At the end of the day, what governments do is work towards self-preservation. And what we need to do is work towards our self-preservation. And I think it is high time we as a community come up with a statement, they are the servants of the people. You know, they call themselves public servants, yet they act as gods. And it is time, every time, to be able to do that. Now, when I was picked up, people celebrated me, they said, you were very brave. I don't think I was brave. In fact, I was doing exactly what was happening in every corner stall, every jhopri, every tea stall. People were saying it. But someone like Hasina was able to do what she did and able to survive, not because of her police or the judiciary or all the state institutions she'd usurped, but because of the silence of too many good people.
Yeah.
And I think we need to remind ourselves of that. We are culpable. The minute we stay silent when something like that happens, we have contributed to that process. And we ourselves need to implicate ourselves when we say that. And I would really like to remind ourselves of that. The minute something happens and you say, "Kya karna, main to kuch kar nahi sakte," you've actually become a cog in the wheel. Because the minute you give up, you are no longer a resistance. And the repressor no longer needs to be repressive because repression has become normalized. And we need to fight that.
Very good. Thank you.
If you look around South Asia, you asked me about Nepal, but let me just go into Sri Lanka, where we saw horrific civil war and disappeared of that era. Their bodies are still being dug up in Kilonetchi in the north. Activists, many activists have moved on, they have passed away, but the issue remains because disappearance is excruciating, a condition without a denouement. Bangladesh, as Shahidul said, has seen those areas and may Bangladesh never go back to that era of disappearances. I personally believe that Bangladesh still teeters. We don't know where it will go. We all hope for the best with the upcoming elections. India, because India is so vast, we tend to forget the disappearances that have occurred in parts of India, in the northeast, in the Deccan, in Kashmir. So there is an accounting that's required, but it doesn't happen at the national level, and you would hope at least it will happen at the provincial level. Pakistan, looking from the outside, it's a difficult place in Pakistan with what's happening with the Baloch activists and the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa northern areas, Sindh. I believe that not enough is known about the pain being suffered by the public of Pakistan, by the rest of South Asia, because there is almost like a media barrier between Pakistan and the rest of South Asia. I'll come to Nepal in the end. Nepal saw horrific instances of disappearances during the 10-year internal conflict between 2000 2005 and 1995 and 2005. However, that trend hopefully is ended forever, but Nepal is doing something that nobody else in South Asia is doing: transitional justice. The term transitional justice has never been brought into play with any effectiveness in Pakistan, where there is even a larger need for the use of transitional justice mechanisms. Truth and Reconciliation Commission, Disappearances Commission. Sri Lanka had it. It has essentially weakened. Bangladesh, as far as I know, hasn't had a TJ commission, but Nepal, with all its problems, has at least kept that diya alive, that little lamp of transitional justice is alive. And if we succeed, we're fighting to keep the momentum. If we succeed, Nepal's example may be useful for the rest of South Asia.
So our time is up, but as suggested by Shima Kirmani Sahiba, we would like to pass a small resolution in the end. And if you can suggest, or I can suggest any resolution, small resolution, we can demand that all the governments in South Asia and even all over the world must stop using the term of national security to silence the voices of dissent, because this trend of using national security to silence the voices of dissent is becoming the biggest threat for democracy, human rights, and freedom of expression.
Good.
Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Well
I
done.
thank you, Kanak Mani Dixit Saab, Shahidul Alam, and Christine Chung. Thank you very much.
Well done. I hope it makes the press.